All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar presented by NACo EDGE. Today's topic is maximizing taxpayer value, the Sedgwick County strategic approach to managing public funds. Thrilled that you're joining us today, wherever you're joining us from around the country. My name is Kyle Klein. I serve as Director of Financial Partnerships for NACo EDGE. And of course, our mission at NACo EDGE is to identify and develop value-added, cost-saving, or revenue-generating tools and resources that can assist counties in doing what they do best and serving their taxpayers, serving their residents. So we're thrilled. One of those partnerships is with 3+one, who will be featuring today alongside our friends over at Sedgwick County. Grateful for our speakers being here, and really looking forward to hearing more about insights related to data, how data is being leveraged for liquidity and cash management, generating new revenues and savings for taxpayers. So just want to welcome Sedgwick County. Our speakers today will be Brent Shelton, the Deputy CFO, and then David Floyd. He's the Principal Accountant, but also the Chief Investment Officer in Sedgwick County, Kansas. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Also, we'll be joined by Tyler Frame from 3+one, who will be speaking from their organization standpoint and just explaining how that partnership is benefiting Sedgwick, but also counties all across the country. So Tyler, relationship specialist from 3+one, thank you for joining us as well. As just a quick reminder before we kick things off here, I want to mention that we do welcome your questions throughout the presentation and would encourage you to use the Q&A function that you can find at the bottom of your screen, as opposed to the chat function. So if you could please just submit your questions via Q&A, we will get to those as soon and quickly as we can. So without further ado, thank you all for joining us. Thank you for the time for the members joining us as well, and I will just turn it over to Tyler.
Thank you so much, Kyle, and thank you everybody on the recording today. We're really excited to have you all here. I'm Tyler from 3+one, and I'm joined by Brent Shelton and David Floyd from Sedgwick County. I'll let them introduce themselves in just a moment, but wanted to thank Kyle and the team at NACo for our partnership with you all. If we've learned one thing over the past few years, it's that counties need more resources and are trying to do more with less. And our partnership has really helped get the word across the country and learn from counties, tell their stories, and identify where we can add new value to their processes. Today, we're going to be telling a new story about Sedgwick County and what Brent and David and the team have been able to do with the partnership through CashVest and NACo. And I just wanted to share a couple fun facts about Sedgwick County before David and Brent introduce themselves. For those of you that are joining us from around the country, Sedgwick County was founded in 1867 and is named after John Sedgwick, who was a major general in the Union Army during the American Civil War. County has 20 cities, including Wichita, which is the largest city in Kansas and the county seat. It's also known as the air capital of the world, home to many large aircraft manufacturing plants, and has a population a little over 525,000. We have been serving the team at Sedgwick County for a little over a year now, and we're really excited to tell their story today. So Brent and David, maybe if you could give a quick introduction to yourselves and how long you've been at the county and how you got involved in public finance.
Thank you, Tyler. Well, I'm Brent Shelton. I'm the Deputy CFO here at the county. I'm a 30-year veteran of property tax administration and local government finance. I was at the point that I didn't think you could teach an old dog new tricks, but Tyler has shown us differently as we have used 3+one, the CashVest portal, to help with our strategic liquidity and our investment management. I would guess if I told you how I got into public finance in one word, it'd be serendipity. Let's leave it at that. David?
Similar Serendipitous, yes. So I started in public administration, public service as a controller for the county's public works division. Opportunity to pivot to the division of finance came available just over 2 years ago. Entered here as a principal accountant. Soon after was asked to participate in the portfolio management process. County policy does require that someone with hands-on in that process be the county's investment manager, and was awarded that distinction, and am privileged to serve in that capacity, and have been learning along with Brent what 3+1 has been able to do to really elevate that portfolio and its performance.
Thank you so much. So before we get into some of the results and a little bit more into the data, we wanted to start off by talking about where we are today in the current marketplace. Obviously, one of the things that so many counties are talking about today is the impact of inflation and the cost of providing services that are so necessary to taxpayers. At the same time, interest rates have also increased rapidly in the last few years, which has enabled counties like Sedgwick County to offset some of those cost increases through effective cash management. Now, Brent and David, you know much better than I do that cash management at counties is a complex process. There's a lot of individuals involved, and you all have a full team supporting you. Could you talk a little bit, though, about how the county has viewed inflation and how it's impacted your ability to serve taxpayers over the last couple of years?
I think one of the things that we have seen is just the cost of goods and services that we purchase has continued to increase. The county's tax digest is about $6 billion. So to the extent that we can earn money on idle funds, that reduces that property tax burden. And we've kind of got a sleepy, if you will, very steady increase in property values year over year, but the last couple of years coming out of the pandemic have seen big jumps, and that's causing a tax burden on citizens. So to the extent that we can offset some of that property tax increase with investment earnings, we're happy to do that. Our governing body is focused on doing that.
You know, if there's one thing that has remained constant over the last 100 years, it's that interest rates have continued to fluctuate. They've gone up and down. Inflation has gone up and down. But one thing's remained true. Your cash, as stewards of the taxpayers' funds, will always have value. And we give you all at Sedgwick County a lot of credit for looking at cash as a savings and revenue generating asset, because in order to continue to serve your taxpayers, you have to look at cash a little bit more differently and strategically. And that's what you've been able to do through the CashFest program. A consistent theme that we're observing in local government is how fewer resources are really having an impact on staffing, technology, and cash management above and beyond just the cost of those services. Just having enough individuals to work at the county and serve you all and provide necessary services. That's something that counties tell us that they're struggling with right now. Could you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that Sedgwick County has experienced and how you were able to do more with less?
Let me make it specific to our cash management and our investments. We used to have the luxury of having a full-time treasury person that invested idle funds, that handled cash, worked on that cash flow management. That position was eliminated years ago. So now David has assumed those responsibilities, one of the many hats that he wears. So having some third-party analytics to help with that has been a lot of benefit. We're seeing it across the organization in law enforcement, in public works, in our public safety arena, where it's just tough right now in this labor market to get people. So the cost of labor has gone up as well. So we're being forced to pay more to get people, and we've come to the point a couple of times where it's not doing more with less. In some areas it's doing less with less. So it's nice to be able to have that additional support.
Really pull in your expertise so that we can both, preserve purchasing power of existing funds to head off inflation, but also create new resources that otherwise would have to be raised through taxation.
Yeah, such a great point. Now, David, as an investment manager, you wear a lot of different hats. Could you talk through a little bit about all the hats that you do wear? Because I think, some counties may have a treasurer and a CFO and maybe an investment manager, but you are doing a lot for the county from a cash management perspective. Could you talk about the different roles that you play?
Well, so I just need to be cognizant of the two very large operations going on here in the county. One is the treasurer is collecting, apportioning, and distributing taxes on behalf of not just Sedgwick County, but all taxing authorities throughout the county. You mentioned 20 cities. We also have the state's largest school district. And so there's just a lot of cash inflow, cash outflow, and those are highly regulated, handed down through the state. And we need to make sure in portfolio management that that we're facilitating those transactions in a timely manner, while also benefiting from being the custodian of those funds. And so that has really challenged me to look at the portfolio as dynamic, as cyclical, and you all have given us a great tool with strategic liquidity in really drawing some bright lines through that cyclicality so that we can plan ahead and have a path to follow.
Yeah, and that kind of dovetails nicely into what is the difference between looking at cash flow and looking at liquidity. A lot of counties tell us that they do cash flow forecasting, and I know Sedgwick County does as well. But fewer tell us that they're using liquidity data to complement their cash flow forecasting. Obviously, cash flow is looking at what are the daily ins and outs that your county experiences, while the liquidity picture is what is that long-term base of cash that can really sustain your county into the future, above and beyond what you need to operate on a daily basis. You got to have enough on deposit for payroll and AP and capital projects, et cetera. But you all are leveraging long-term liquidity data. You mentioned your strategic liquidity, which we'll get to in a little bit, to help understand how much cash do you have that you can earn and save longer term on. So we'll be talking a little bit about the difference between the two of those. And especially now that ARPA funds must be obligated by the end of this year and spent by the end of 2026, you all are preparing for shifts in your cash position so that you can always ensure that you're saving and earning the most possible. And the results have been astounding to us. We're really excited to share this with everybody. But over the last year, since we've been working together, Sedgwick County has generated almost $16 million, 1.56 million of which were as a result of leveraging the CashVest data. And David and Brent have been real stewards for the county to take a different look at their cash and offset that annual tax levy. Brent, you mentioned at one point about 214 million is your annual tax levy, and being able to show your taxpayers that you're offsetting 0.72% of their taxes through a new program that's helping you confirm you're earning and saving the most possible, that's really exciting. And I think, today where interest rates are, interest is really fun to talk about. But David and Brent, could you talk a little bit about how looking at data has changed the way you view your cash and added some confidence to your cash and investment management process?
Why don't I hit it from a high level, and then David might want to add to that. But I think that the analytics at a broad level have just given us that objective data that gives us the confidence to know we can put an extra $5 million to work, as we did just last week after our meeting. That we're more strategic with putting money to work and not maintaining as large of an operating balance. And I can tell you that from one of my responsibilities in this role is to provide a quarterly financial report to the commission, and to be able to tell them in 2022 that we've earned $700,000 so far this year, and in 2023 it was $5 million, and year to date through the first 6 months of 2024 was $8.5 million. Just to see that go up definitely gets the attention of the commissioners, and gives us a lot of credibility in their eyes as well as the public.
And for me, the portfolio has always been, a low point and a high point. Managing, we're anywhere from $300 to $800 million in the portfolio and on hand, depending on the time of year and the activities taking place. But within that $300 to $800 million, CashVest has changed my thinking that it's not just the summation of securities and accounts. Within those amounts, there are also levels and benchmarks that we can aspire to. And once with your help, we've defined those benchmarks and set those goals, we then can compare those to the investments in the accounts and plan ahead so much better.
Yeah, and obviously throughout the year, your cash position is changing drastically. Could you talk a little bit about how the county collects taxes and how there's different periods throughout the year where you've got a lot more cash than others, but how the data has helped you see that from a 30,000-foot view and help us narrow down into what can we do to take advantage of those periods of time where our tax collections are a little bit higher and our cash position is very dynamic.
Well, the county has two collection dates for property tax, which is as most counties, but that would be our biggest revenue source. And then there are 6 distribution cycles throughout the year. So we're holding for a month to 6 weeks cash that we're a fiduciary for those 20 cities, the school districts, all those other taxing jurisdictions, and putting that money to work for that brief period of time has helped us realize some gains there.
And thanks for showing this chart, because you clearly see those 2 collection points and large distributions. And then, like Brent said, there's 4 other distributions spread out where there is not a collection effort preceding that. And so we definitely need to be aware of those demands and build that into our maturity schedule. So having the analytics and being able to see that coming has been really so helpful. And again, this chart shows those levels, those lines, straight lines within the cyclicality for us to follow. And it has been very beneficial.
Yeah, it's always interesting when we talk to counties that say, we do cash flow forecasting. We know the different times of the year when we have more cash. But it's interesting in this particular chart, which identifies your strategic liquidity, you have a significant portion in the top purple section that most would consider their cash flow, right? And the bases, the colorful horizontal sections beneath it, that's your liquidity. And really understanding and starting to optimize, how long do I have a dollar from the moment it's collected to the moment it needs to be spent, and then subsequently knowing what the marketplace is willing to value that cash for. That's really powerful, especially where we are in the marketplace right now, because interest rates, they're at 20-year highs, and inflation is still having an impact on counties. So we want to do everything we can to protect ourselves. If interest rates do change, are we doing everything we can to protect the county's cash position from any changes in the environment? And that's what this data is designed to help you all have greater confidence in, knowing that you're putting your cash flow to work, but you're also taking next steps and being proactive on your liquidity, the colorful sections of this chart, to know that we're doing everything we can for the taxpayers. On the next slide, we dive a little bit deeper into what is your strategic liquidity, to specifically identifying what is the duration associated with each dollar. So again, from the moment you collect a dollar to the moment it needs to be spent, there are different buckets of your strategic liquidity identified as the cushion, levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, so that when you are making those investment decisions, David, for example, working with your brokers and your local financial providers, knowing exactly how much cash you have to play with, so that when you're looking at opportunities in the marketplace, we can take the question out and give you the confidence to know I've got this cash for a specific period of time. Because at the end of the day, safety and liquidity are the top two pillars of public finance. Yield comes last. We like to talk about yield, but we also need to make sure that we are looking at our liquidity in a way where we don't put too much of it to work. We have to have enough working capital on deposit, and we need to be able to fund daily operations. What does this table mean to you all? Because I know this is a different way of looking at liquidity for Sedgwick County.
Well, so safety, as you mentioned, being the top priority, is taken care of before we arrive here at the policy level. We work with you and internally to pre-qualify all banks, brokers, dealers, so that when it comes time to make these placements, everyone who is in attendance is going to be able to meet the safety requirements without any issue. Then we get to liquidity, and the cushion has really satisfied our need for liquidity, has ruled out all the uncertainty around what is sufficient liquidity. And we feel that cushion, that 122 million, will facilitate both known and unknown events, liquidity events that might take place, so that we can focus on rounding out the 4 liquidity levels, benchmarks, as we have cash inflows, and the surplus can be applied similarly, just to focus on yield.
It's always exciting to look at the progress that you've made over the last year. So when we put the liquidity data into a visual perspective, you can see that the county has made great strides in transitioning a lot of its excess working capital, which was previously in bank accounts, into strategic investments in accordance with the data. You all have significantly reduced your typical working capital balances, which have helped you not only preserve revenue for the county, but also confirm that you have enough available on deposit to continue operating. Your cash position, as we mentioned, changes throughout the year. And during different times throughout the year, you've leveraged the data to take advantage of even short periods of time where your balances even exceeded $700 million at some points of the year. What does this progress mean to you all when you can actually see the steps that you've taken to earn and save more?
I think what it means for us is that we are, again, much more confident in being able to have our liquidity working for us. I think that the local financial institutions that we work with recognize a stepped up level of professionalism. They have responded very favorably to that. Let me put on one of my other caps, and that is working with economic development and being able to be more clear with what we want from our financial institutions. Our local banks have stepped up and have gotten a lot more competitive. That's keeping dollars local. That's helping the local economy as well, as opposed to buying agency securities and things like that. So they've been more competitive now than they were in the past.
Roughly 50% of our portfolio is placed locally. With your help through the rate quote request process, we've really leveled out the playing field between financial institutions and brokers and fixed income products, so that we're able to enjoy those high yield liquid balances, as the chart shows. So that $122 million cushion we talked about is spread across some low, no yield. Well, it's all yield. It's low, but it's all earning. But the majority of it is high yield, liquid, and as Brent said, it's placed locally. So there's that multiplier effect too.
Yeah. Now, some counties that are on the call today may be thinking to themselves, I already contact my banks on a regular basis. I ask them for rates. I find out what the best option is. And David, you mentioned that you were also doing rate quote requests before the CashFest program. Could you talk a little bit about how formalizing the process? I know you mentioned it's helped your financial partners become more comfortable with the process, standardized it a little bit, but even from a time savings perspective, could you talk a little bit about how that process has changed for you?
Sure. So time leading up to placement, and then when the placement is taking place, time is critical, and you all have been able to free up time as the bids are coming in and digest all that information, present it, summarize it for us in a way that we can easily understand, and we can make a decision so that we can award those funds before the markets change. And again, so that we can do it in a way that everybody everyone on our list, every approved financial institution and broker dealer is able to participate if they so choose. And so an example that comes to mind recently, $20 million that was sent out to 14 potential bidders. We received 6 responses, and through standardizing that, we were able to do that with ease. And we'll look at one page with the results and receive your recommendation and award the funds, rather than having sending out 14 emails, having 6 phone calls, and hopefully getting it all done before the day was over. So you really just you lend us so much horsepower to get a better result.
Yeah. And one thing that we're hearing, from your peers across the country is we need more transparency. Brent, you mentioned that you're providing regular reports to the county's commissioners. And having more data, benchmarking, rate quote results to share with all of the stakeholders and taxpayers that are involved in this process. We always like to say nothing bad comes from more data. And if we can give you all, to use your words, David, more horsepower to explain to your stakeholders why you're doing what you're doing and what led to the decision that you ultimately made, we want to be able to substantiate your cash and investment management process, giving you the analytics and the data to back up why you're doing what you're doing. So thank you for that feedback. At the end of the day, it all goes back to knowing what the benchmarks are. This is a really dynamic marketplace right now, and you all wear a lot of different hats. You have a lot of different priorities, making sure that you know what the right decision is based on the data. We're really proud to see what some of the results have been for you all. Is there anything else that you, Brent and David, wanted to share today about how the CashFest program has been a value add for Sedgwick County?
I think I would just add on to what David was mentioning about those rate quote requests. We were doing as good a job as we thought we could do objectively when we were doing those on our own. But the time savings is one thing, but I think the other thing that's more important for me is that your approach being providing the objectivity has filtered out a lot of noise, and we give a specific request for what we want, and we get back specific quotes that meet that request rather than what might be best for the broker that's trying to push a product. So that has helped a great deal, and that transparency with that objective data.
Yeah,
Again, that's the professionalism, adds to the credibility.
Yeah, thank you. We are really proud to serve Sedgwick County, and we're in over half of the states across the country right now through our partnership with NACo. It's important to tell these stories, I think, because so many of your peers are on the call today and they're asking themselves, man, what are a couple steps that I could take to get something off of my to-do list? Be able to make cash and investment management decisions that's not based on an opinion, but based on data, because I have so many stakeholders and I want to prove to my taxpayers that I'm doing everything I possibly can. We're really proud that the program has delivered over $2.5 billion in new revenues to counties. And on average, it's helping you identify more cash to put to work, especially in a period of time where your cash has so much value. So Brent and David, thank you both so much for your partnership and your time today. I know this was impactful for a lot of your peers on the call. Kyle, thank you, and NACo for all of your support. And I'll turn it over to you, Kyle, for any closing remarks.
Yeah, well, thank you, Tyler, and Brent, David. Thank you so much for sharing that story. You know, as we like to say around here within this program at NACo, you know, the data doesn't lie and the results don't lie. You look at the $2.5 billion, and those are real non-tax revenues, you know, that are helping to fund important critical services infrastructure for counties and their residents. So we're very proud of that partnership and the success that you hear, and you can see why that's exactly why NACo has endorsed 3+1 and brought it under the NACo fold. So very excited for that. We do have two questions. If we have time, I just want to ask that have come in, two separate questions for the panelists. How does the county, in the Sedgwick County in this case, think about the value of the program on a long-term basis? Do you see value on a long-term basis? And then the second question, what would you say the value of the program is to a county that, you know, doesn't have excess cash to invest?
Well, I think it's got, because I think history is the best guide for the future. The longer term that our relationship is with 3+1, the more data that we will have, the more certainty we'll have, the more confidence we'll have that that we're making good decisions. Because while our, even though the charts sometimes look erratic, they're pretty consistent year over year. It's within the year that we see those big changes in cash. So the longer term that we are with 3+1, I think that will be to our benefit. I think if you're a county that doesn't have in idle funds, give this a shot, because the way that it was presented to us, we provided information, provided our data. They came back to us and said, here's some things that we suggest. They may find some liquidity for you as a county. And there's, I don't want to speak for that, but we had them, it was a no money upfront look at, they took a look under the hood and didn't cost us anything initially. So.
Great. Well, thank you, Brent. And that's also a great point as well. You know, as part of the NACo partnership with 3+1, that is something, you know, it's really no risk to try the program. We have a lot of counties that you know, want to take that look, that have a third party objective view of their cash, of their liquidity. And, you know, the burden, I should say, is on 3+1 to deliver those results, and as the data shows. So we encourage any county, to Brent's point, that, you know, may be hesitant to at least give it a shot and take a look and see what they might be able to do for you. And Tyler, I don't know, you know, from 3+1 standpoint, if you want to say anything on that point.
I think you nailed it, Brent. Great job.
Yeah. Okay. I don't see any other questions that have come in, so I think we'll just end it there from today if there are no other questions. Again, Brent, David, thanks so much for the time. Thanks so much for the partnership with Sedgwick County. Very exciting to see those results, and very important to share that with your peers and with the counties and the officials across the country. So thank you for that. And Tyler, as always, thank you for the partnership with 3+1.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Any parting words from the panel? All right. We'll end it there. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and hope everyone has a great rest of their day and a great rest of the week. Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.